Look at the green status panels on the right there. The space base here covers a lot of ground, 750 square kilometers, and a lot goes on. But all the activities can be summed up by these status panels. What they are is a go, no-go, green, red resume of everything it takes to successfully prepare, launch, and follow Ariane. Green means okay, red means the opposite. It's very simple. If we get a red in any of these areas, we stop the countdown, as you saw just moments ago. Whatever held us up is holding us up no longer, and you can see we're just under 4 minutes from liftoff. The panels are there. We checked them during the first part of the mission before lifting off. The status of these services, and you saw them there, the launcher, the satellites, the weather, telemetry, everything, are sent in here to Jupiter from the different outposts, which is why we call Jupiter the nerve center of the space base. But other people are working tonight, among them up here, the launch management teams under the direction of Patrick Lucet, you heard talking about the launcher campaign. This is the Launch Control Center, and 3 main teams are working. One is responsible for launch operations, a second for flight readiness of the launcher, and a third follows the countdown from a quality point of view, according to established procedures. In all, about 100 people up there. They're closer to the pad than we are here in Jupiter. We're about 13, 14 kilometers away, but they're right next door. They're 1 kilometer away. The control center, you see them sitting in, has walls that are 1 meter thick. They carry out all the checks and validations down to liftoff that will let the mission begin. Once the launcher's left the pad, their work is done. Some other things that we have to take into account when launching: a French Space Operations Act passed in 2008 makes it mandatory to show that you're preventing any possible collision with the International Space Station. Remember, the ISS, flying roughly 400 kilometers above us, makes a pass around the Earth every 90 minutes or so. So sometimes if the ISS is in Ariane's projected flight path, we change the launch window, but that's not the case tonight. This version of Ariane, mainly for commercial launches going east into what they call eventually geostationary transfer orbit. Take a look at the split screen image now. This is one of the last things you're going to see. We just want to mention it briefly. These are the propellant feeder arms, liquid hydrogen on the left, liquid oxygen on the right. We monitor these arms down to the last minute because we're filling the upper stage with very cold cryogenic fuel, and it boils off in the weather here. You see the yellow bars in the middle of your screen. Those are the arms. And keep your eyes on them at liftoff because they have to swing back. They have to pull back in order to start the ignition sequence going. If they don't pull back, we don't go anywhere. Minute and a half to go until the mission begins. We want to say hello to our friends at Eutelsat and our friends in the Mideast where they're watching. At Intelsat headquarters, just outside Washington, all of you taking the broadcast, we hope you're enjoying the evening.
Attention pour moins une minute.
The DDO is going to call out the 1 minute mark, and we'll be into the final 60 seconds.
Top H0 moins une minute.
All that's left to explain is the final ignition sequence. It starts when the yellow cryo arms pull back. Remember to watch for that. That gets the ball rolling. And then watch for this. At H0, the DDO will call out allumage volcan. That's the ignition of the main stage, the cryogenic engine. But we don't lift off yet. There will be a 7-second wait while the onboard computer checks the performance of the engine. It does this twice. If all is well, it gives the order to light the 2 solid boosters, and we go. We will let you watch liftoff of Ariane Space, flight number 225, Eutelsat 8 West B and Intelsat 34. Final countdown.
À tous de DDO, attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage Vulcain. Allumage EAP, décollage. paramètres bord sont normaux.
So the arms swung back as scheduled. You saw it there. We had ignition, and you saw Ariane 5 begin her mission, rising off the ground here in French Guiana with a
Les
lot of
paramètres
fire,
bord sont normaux.
right on time, at little past the original launch window, because we have the hold in the countdown. But we're fine now. The DDO says everything is okay on board with our two passengers,
La
Eutelsat
trajectoire
8 West
est
B
nominale.
and Intelsat 34. We are underway. The boosters providing over 90% of the thrust, propelling the launcher along its trajectory at ever higher velocity, getting her away from the pull of the Earth. And there's a lot to pull. Ariane's weight at liftoff, about 775 tons. Most of that's fuel. She's burning 5 tons of fuel every second, 2.5 tons in each booster, and the core stage burning another
Les
300
paramètres bord
kilos
sont normaux.
per second. Ariane now following the flight program in the onboard computer, which gives all the commands, including stage separations. We'll soon begin to see those.
La trajectoire est nominale.
We are in the first of 4
4
flight phases. The first 3 are powered. The last is not. We'll describe each in turn so you can follow Ariane as she heads across the Atlantic. Right now, the first flight phase, the Vulcan engine and the 2 boosters are burning. The boosters will burn their propellant in just under 2.5 minutes, about 20 seconds to go. And they'll be the first we jettison. You'll hear the DDO call out that milestone too. We're heading east over the Atlantic. The decision to build the site here in French Guiana made in the 60s when France wanted a new base, in part for its opening on the water to allow for launches over uninhabited areas. On the animation, you saw the separation
L'accélération
of the booster, so we've had that right on time. The confirmation by the DDO right on time at about 79 kilometers up. You see what that looks like. The other booster out of camera range on the left. The onboard computer detects that there is no more fuel in the tanks. Nice shot of Ariane rising. The dot of light is the core stage still burning. As they have no more propellant to burn, the thrust decreases and the computer senses the drop in acceleration.
trajectoire est nominale. Les paramètres bord sont normaux.
Coming up next on separation of the fairing, you see the logos there that's placed there by the customers. That's something of a tradition. We said 79 kilometers altitude, roughly. You can see on the bottom left is our altitude, on the right is our speed.
Les paramètres bord
Sometimes the figure is not exactly what you see on the screen. That's normal.
séparation de la coiffe.
That's due to a slight delay or lag in the telemetry coming in here. We've had separation of the fairing right on time. You see Eutelsat exposed to the elements there. Separation of the fairing given by 2 pyrotechnic systems, one horizontal and one vertical. These are cords that actually remove the fairing by a small contained explosion. We emphasize it's controlled, so there's no threat to the vehicle. We can separate the fairing now because we're out of the dense layers of the atmosphere at over 100 kilometers up. You can see what the jettison of the fairing looks like. There's another half on the right side out of camera range. Above 100 kilometers, there's neither friction nor heating, which could disturb the passengers. Liftoff's very noisy, and a noisy affair which shakes the launcher up. We could also discard any dead weight when possible to maximize the launcher's operation. We can do that now. The fairing weighs over 2 tons. We are in the second powered flight phase. The boosters have done their work. Only the single engine burning now. It'll burn for about 9 minutes in all. Our speed is important at this moment, and that's the role of the main stage. Its cryogenic propellant system is not only highly efficient, but provides a push that can last for a long time, like 9 minutes. There are different propulsion systems on the Ariane 5. Cryogenics, as used in the main stage, are more efficient than solid propellant, which is used in the boosters. Basically, solids are for getting us off the ground, away from the pull of the Earth. Cryogenics for more precision orienting of the vehicle, and they can allow for a stage to be reignited in another version of Ariane. We're going to go to a replay of the liftoff that happened just 5 minutes ago, so you can relive those exciting moments. Coming up, Ariane 5 is the heavy lift launcher. The other two members of the family, Soyuz, lifts middle-sized payloads, 2 and 3 tons, and Vega, the light lift vehicle, for 1-ton missions. Here's the replay. You can see from another angle. It's always exciting to live these moments of liftoff. We have cameras at several of the half-dozen observation sites that are stationed across the base. There's another one. It's a big one. It's a big base, 750 square kilometers, about the size of the island of Martinique, our neighbor, if you know Martinique. And these observation sites furnish us with shots from different angles. People also line the beaches to watch the launch, where the view is also quite good. Here's another angle. The closest observation site is called Toucan, and many of the VIPs are out there now. Toucan is closest to the base, about 4 kilometers. Ariane 5's liftoff there lights up the whole place. I don't know if you've ever seen it from there, but it's really something to watch. We should have more replay shots, including from Toucan, at the end of the broadcast. Some figures. The two passengers tonight are the 164th and 165th satellites to be launched on an Ariane 5. They're also the 318th and 319th to go into geostationary transfer orbit. 2 minutes to go, roughly, in the lower stage burn. On the right is Eutelsat, exposed to the elements. Under that, the black bell-shaped structure, that's called the Silda. That's a carrying structure that allows us to lift a second passenger. And underneath the black Silda is our second passenger, Intelsat 34. Underneath that is the vehicle equipment bay, and the long tube is the first stage, whose engine will be cut off in about a minute, and the first stage will be separated shortly after that, and we'll be into the second half of the mission when the second stage is lit. Our radar and telemetry signal has been picked up by our first downrange tracking station. That's over the border in Brazil at a place called Natal. Natal will see the lower stage burnout and separation at 8 minutes and 51 seconds, as well as the upper stage ignition. All of Ariane's trajectory has been designed to be followed from the ground. The launcher is sending radar and telemetry back, and a network of stations keeps constant watch on the health of her systems. Telemetry is launch vehicle data, basically. Information on about 1,500 parameters now being collected and transmitted back to the ground stations every second. These include indicators of Ariane's health and performance, and they come from pressure and temperature sensors, which record all of her functions throughout the flight. There you saw the shut-off of the lower stage engine, and we'll have in a moment, there it is, the separation of the first stage, and there you saw the engine light up on the second stage. 3 commands given by the onboard computer in 12 seconds. The main stage will fall into the Atlantic. You can see that's what's happening above. Will fall off the coast of Africa. Up in space, all is well aboard Ariane 5. Our speed, as you can see, approaching 7 kilometers per second, and our altitude approaching 200 kilometers. We're now into the third and final powered flight phase. It's a 16-minute burn for the upper stage. Will burn until 24 minutes and 54 seconds. The upper stage, about the size of a small studio apartment, and its job is to take the satellites to their injection point. It also positions them for separation and then releases them into space. With ignition of the upper stage, the second half of the mission will